Welcome. My name is Jody Krainer. I work with Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. We appreciate you joining us today for the Successful Approaches to Serving the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Community webinar. We have the distinct pleasure of having Jennifer Anderson and Stacy Heckendorf to do the presentation. I'm, without further ado, turn it over to them. And after I mention, if you have questions or comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat. And then as we get started, if you want to turn off your cameras, feel free to do that. And there will be individuals interpreting on screen that you'll be able to see them. Plus the closed caption option is available at the lower end. So without further ado, Jennifer and Stacy.
Thank you, Jody, for that introduction. We are very thrilled to be here. Our goal for today is to share with you some of the amazing work that we've been doing, connecting with the various dementia-related providers, grants, and other agencies throughout the state of Wisconsin. We'll each introduce ourselves, and then we'll get right into the presentation. So I am Stacy Heckendorf. I am the Behavioral Health Initiative Project Coordinator within the Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, which is in the Department of Health Services. My background is audiology, but for the past 3 years now, I've been doing this position, which is an effort to improve access and equity to services for individuals in the deaf and hard of hearing community within the behavioral health arena. So I work with community members, interpreters, and then clinicians and providers and professionals such as yourself to be able to impact this work. Jennifer?
Hello, my name is Jennifer Anderson. I am a deaf specialist working within the Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I have been with OHH for about 10 years now, and I've really enjoyed reaching out to the community and educating everybody in regards to everything in regards to hearing loss. I also have my ODHH team, Kim and Nicole, the interpreters, so they will be my voice that you'll be hearing. So you'll be hearing both the interpreters throughout the presentation today.
Jody, next slide. So we already touched a little bit on this, but really for the past 2 years, we have been working with several agencies and programs to really raise awareness related to dementia, both within our community, the deaf and hard of hearing, deaf-blind community, but then also for professionals and providers to have a better understanding of the impact and ways to make materials and resources accessible. Next slide. So really the biggest thing about hearing loss is that it's invisible. You don't see it. You don't know necessarily that an individual has that lived experience. So really our hope is to just make it more noticeable for people in the community. Next slide. Oh, Jennifer, go ahead.
Actually, sorry, I had to tell you a funny story about what you said about the invisible disability. I hear this phrase often when I'm out in public places. A lot of people will, start talking to me, but I might not be aware that they're talking to me until I happen to look over and I see they're talking, and then I say, "Sorry, can you repeat?" Or "I can't hear you. I'm sorry." And they'll say, "Oh, I didn't know that, and you don't look deaf." And when they make that comment, I always chuckle because I keep trying to figure out, what am I supposed to look like? I don't know, because there is no physical description of what a deaf person looks like. So just a little funny story to tag along to that.
So really, there is research coming out that shows a connection between dementia and undiagnosed hearing loss. So as our population ages, there are a lot of individuals who will have hearing loss just due to age-related changes. That's considered presbycusis. Also, for a lot of those folks, they may lose hearing in high frequencies first, and that's really where speech carries the most definition of sounds and understanding. And it may be very subtle. You may not know that you have a hearing loss started until you think people are mumbling, or, you're telling your family, I can't hear the TV, or you show up at mom and dad's house and you had no idea how loud that TV could be. I know my dad's, I had no idea like the setting could go up to 85. But as soon as you walk in, and there's those other age-related changes of vision decreases, and when you add a little bit of vision and a little bit of hearing loss, it's not two separate things. They become one thing in the area of deaf blindness. And really, there is not a causal relationship between dementia and untreated hearing loss, but there is a connection because people start to withdraw. They don't go to those social functions that they may have enjoyed in the past. There sometimes becomes partner relationship issues of saying to each other, like, you don't listen to me, or you have selective hearing. But really, they're always those are very subtle signs that a hearing loss may be becoming somebody's experience. Next slide. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer. She's going to talk about some of the events and learning opportunities that we've been presenting to the community and professionals.
Before I go into detail about all the events and activities we partake in, I do want to backtrack a little bit and explain the reason of why. Why? Why do we see or notice that deaf and hard of hearing face barriers such as communication and access? They happen for a multitude of reasons. A lot of the information comes in auditorily in our lives. It might not be captioned. Um, it might not be in a picturesque format per se, where people can visually see or understand the information. And so we decided to provide these events and activities just to spread awareness, especially about really the main focus on dementia. And we're noticing that community members and others really are wanting to know this information. And a lot of the information provided currently is in a plain English, maybe, or it's not always in even plain English. It's more in a jargonized vocabulary approach and format. And so we wanted to make sure that we could provide this information and make sure that it was inclusive. It could include people who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and hearing people. And hence we brought the interpreters in so that they can interpret for hearing people and vice versa. And it also just allows everyone to have access to learn. You'll see in our PowerPoint, oh, the screen's too small here, but you'll see we also have a caption. So if you look at the PowerPoint, you'll see the big screen, and then to the right, there's a small screen. That's our captionist. That's where the captionist would put the words for people to read. This was our Dementia Day project, and we had MJ Grant as our presenter. When we look at presenters, we will look for someone who's going to make a positive impact. And MJ Grant, as I just mentioned, she herself is hearing. She's what we call a CODA, a CODA, a child of deaf adults. So she's a CODA, meaning her parents are both deaf. And she shares her personal life story in regards to her mother, going through the progression of being diagnosed that with mother having dementia and how life changed and how eventually mom was transitioned into a nursing home because of the dementia. And the really nice thing about MJ is that it's just raw information. And she's on Instagram, she's on Facebook, she posts on social media, and she has a multitude of followers. The access of information she is providing in a very personal format, and it's really awakened so many people with the understanding of, oh, that's what that is. I've seen this, but to know that they can apply it to something that actually makes sense. So we were able to bring MJ Grant, and she presented a whole day with us. And I think every single person was touched. I really encourage you eventually to look her up on Instagram or Facebook. She still continues to share her story. Next slide, please. This event was also during Wellness Days. Our focus was on dementia, and we decided that we wanted to have more of an interactive experience. And we had learned about what's called DCS, where you do a more virtual reality goggle type experience. And it's not, it's more of just a hands-on, it gives you a slight idea of what it's like for a person to live with maybe they're hearing, but they have dementia, um, and what it's like. So, for example, if they hear voice commands, sorry. So, what we did is we had DCS come in and worked with us, the Office for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and normally they provide these events for hearing people, but because it's not presented in sign language and it doesn't incorporate more of the visual aspects, we brought them in so that we could have more of a hands-on understanding of what the life is like to live a day in having dementia. Next slide. Every year we have wellness days. It's always in April. So just keep that in mind. You are so welcome to join us next year. Anyway, in 2024, we had learned that people still wanted more information in regards to dementia. And so we continued on with that same theme throughout the last few years. And so in 2024, we brought in Dr. Jamie Wilson, who is a psychiatrist. He's actually a psychologist, sorry, interpreter, neuropsychologist, and he's also deaf. And he has worked with a multitude of patients with various hearing loss. And so he presented that day, and it was, again, amazing. We had two different speaker presenters. We had MJ, who talked about her own personal journey, and then we had Dr. Jamie Wilson, who had more of the clinical aspect that was presented. Next slide, please. So this, we have videos. How do I want to backtrack. I want to emphasize that you don't see a lot of videos that are accessible in sign language for people with hearing loss who are deaf. And so we were able to partner with the Bold team, with Kathleen Smith being one of them, and they provided us a script on 5 different topics. And so what we're allowed to do is then translate the information into sign language. And Stacy and I have learned so much from all the feedback on the videos. So the first video, which is what I'll show you shortly, when the first video finishes, we had a survey originally for all audiences, whether you're deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, and hearing. And we learned so many things, so much from that feedback. There were hearing people or hard of hearing people that said, oh, the background noise, there's like a background music type thing in the background. And that was very distracting, especially for those who have somewhat of a hearing loss. It was interfering. They weren't able to hear the speaker. And so that was interesting to think about for feedback for future reference, that we have to make sure we're inclusive. And one thing is to be cognizant about possibly removing background sound, just that extra environmental sounds that interfere. And I really enjoyed making the video. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll show the first video, please. Oh, 1 second. I think it's, and just show just the first minute or two. We'll just do a sneak peek, not the whole video, please. Thank you. Okay, so that's just a short snippet of what our videos will include: a captioned method, a voiceover, and in sign language. And then also we included visuals. Sometimes it just helps everybody to envision it, because you have to remember sign language is not based on English format structure. We have our own visual language. So it's really important to not only have the signs, but then also to have the video, the visuals as well. So we completed the second video, which we're not going to show today, but I do encourage you to look at that later. And currently we're in the final stages of editing for the third video. So soon they will be up on our ODHH website. And I encourage you to share them with everyone and anyone. The more people are aware, the more people know. And it's great to share information like this. Next slide, please. I'm sure some of you might be already familiar with the Remember Project. It's a theatrical approach on how they shared information in regards to dementia. My boss had actually collaborated with the Remember Project group and had wanted to figure out if there was any way that we could use that and make it accommodating or adapt to our deaf and hard of hearing and deafblind audience. And so we had a script that was revised that would work for our audience. And we asked them if we could use deaf actors instead of relying on hearing actors and having an interpreter on the screen or on the stage. We wanted to make sure that the audience had direct access to direct content. And so what we did was we did 3 events so far this year, and I can't tell you enough, they were phenomenal. The response to it was amazing. And it was great because after they did their snippet and they did their production, afterwards we opened it up to the audience, and it was everybody. We were able to incorporate everybody, people that were part of DCS, the audience, people who wrote the script, the people who were in the play. We all were able to talk to each other all on the same stage at one time and have inclusive access with everyone in the audience to plant a seed. And hopefully in 2026, we'll be able to continue this with more ideas. So it was amazing. If you ever see one in the future, I highly recommend you attend. Next slide, please. Ah, the director is actually in the middle with the tan jacket. That's Bonnie. I'm sorry, interpreter, Danette. Stacy, help me with the spelling. I'm horrible with spelling names. Oh, McCarthy. There we go. Came to me. Danette McCarthy. Um, and then there's another woman, but my whole point is she's not pictured, but these are our key players that were in our group. Next slide, please. And these were the deaf actors that performed. So she portrays an 80-year-old woman who is the mother, and then the gentleman is the deaf son. And it was just a short 15-minute production, 15-minute play. And Mona, the female actress, just going to summarize, she did not have dementia, was not diagnosed with dementia at this point, but was trying to be more proactive with dementia and preventing dementia. and she was trying to educate herself to recognize the signs of possible oncoming dementia. And so she made these fortune cookies, but within the fortune cookies were not fortunes, but were actual personal memories that she had had throughout her life that she put in the fortune cookies, so that when she bit into the cookie later, if she read the fortune, which is her memory, she'd make sure that she could test herself and she was able to answer for herself. And then she knew she was still safe. And then the son shows up as mom's making these, and it just seems odd that she's making fortune cookies, but with memories. So it's kind of the gist of that. Next slide, please. Whew. Once again, communication varies from person to person. At this point, there is no universal answer. You could be hard of hearing. You could be considered late deafened. You could be deaf blind. You could be culturally deaf. Does the communication mode look the same for every individual? It doesn't. And so my whole point to this is don't be afraid to ask the person directly, what is your preferred way to communicate? It's just one way of being respectful, asking them, do you need an interpreter? You know, don't just assume or just force them to write notes back and forth. We just don't consider that effective communication. And writing, keep in mind, it might not be even easy for the deaf person to write in English, especially if they're a signer or native signer. As I mentioned, ASL is not the same language as English. It's its own language. And so we don't have a written form in ASL. So people assume that it's the same as written English, and it's not. Next slide, please. So effective communication, it's a shared responsibility. It's a two-way street. I think very often people don't realize that, for example, when I request an interpreter for a meeting that I'm going to have with a hearing person, after the meeting concludes, that person might say, "Oh, I'm really glad that we got an interpreter for you." And when they say that to me, and I gently have to remind people, actually, in this situation, can you sign? No, you can't. Well, the interpreter is actually for you. It's for both of us. So when you're looking at that again, it's a two-way street. How do we have effective communication? And again, it's really important that you ask each individual, how do you prefer to communicate? Because to be honest, one person might not want an interpreter in every single situation. Every single situation might have different needs. So always just be mindful and just ask the person directly.
Next slide, please. I'm sorry, Stacy, I can't recall if this was my slide or if you wanted to continue. Okay, well, I'll take this one. Oh, you?
All right.
Okay.
Okay, we'll switch. We've done this presentation a couple times, a couple different ways. So just some things, as Jennifer's already said, prior to meeting with someone, you might want to figure out what works for them. The biggest, most misleading question is, can you lip read? Even for the strongest lip readers, they maybe are getting 30%. And it can be somewhat insulting because the person wants to communicate with you and they might feel weird like responding to you, but just know that is not the end all be all of communication. It's a tool. Some people are better at it than others. Jennifer already mentioned writing. That can work for short interactions. You walk up to a desk, you need to talk to somebody. But if you are doing an interview or a dementia assessment, writing all that information back and forth is overwhelming. And you also have to know if the person can read cursive, can they read? It adds a lot of different communication layers. Also, Gestures go a long way. You can see from the videos that we added a lot of visuals and things because it's about that connection and sharing that message. Some of the other things that you may see individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing used are things like video phones or relay services, caption telephones. We actually provide CART, which is I think we have this wrong, Jen. It's communication assisted real-time transcription. So you have captions here in this meeting that are AI generated auto captions. But for our events, we actually hire live captionists. So they're listening to the content and fixing it real time. There's always room for errors, particularly with auto captions. And it's a personal preference. Some people will use both, an interpreter and captions, to kind of match the English with the signed message, and then assistive listening devices. There are a wide variety of different kinds of things, and so we do know some of the counties have some of these assistive listening devices at their centers, the ADRCs, but the ADRCs and the independent living centers are great resources if you want to learn more about communication options and supports. Next screen, Jody. Just some tips. We've kind of covered this. It's not a one size fits all, and so you just want to make sure you're matching with the individual needs. Next slide. Just a few general things that can be helpful is to state a topic before you begin, or to especially mention if you're going to change topics. You want to make sure that you speak slowly and clearly. You don't want to exaggerate. You don't want to cover your mouth or, have anything in front of your face. And then also, one of the biggest supports, particularly for individuals who are hard of hearing, is if you can reduce the background noise. So we see sometimes in homes, the TV is always playing. So if you're meeting with somebody, it's okay to ask, like, can you turn that off or turn off the volume so that we can both hear each other as well as we can, or like we did with the videos. We never, we're so used to noise in the background that it really took somebody whose experience is that it messes up the message to say, can you take the beautiful background music out of the video because it doesn't add to the content. And so that's how we've changed the videos, and we'll do that for future ones as well. Next slide. Jennifer, do you want to take a few and then we'll switch off?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So communication tips continued. We just want to make sure that you get the person's attention, maintain eye contact. If you disconnect from them visually, you're not looking elsewhere, it is somewhat considered rude. So it is a sign of respect. Keep that in mind. As already mentioned, lip reading is very difficult. Some have better skill in it than others. If you are relying on that, or if it is being a supplement to communication, make sure you don't have anything in your mouth while speaking or in front of your mouth. Also, people who use American Sign Language love to not only look at body language, but facial expressions as part of communication. Those are all cues to help understand what's going on. So again, being mindful of your presence, what is blocking that visual attention and ability to view your body language, facial expressions, etc. When running back and forth, keep it brief and succinct to what you're trying to communicate. I've experienced it personally several times where people aren't even willing to try and write back and forth with me for short communications. And it's very frustrating because it hinders my ability to even try and communicate. So I'm not sure what the resistance is, but I have run into that time and time again. So keep paper and pen ready and then keep it brief and to the point. Next slide, please. Go ahead, Stacy.
We put these in here just as kind of a reminder that, just as communication is not a one size fits all, there are all different kinds and styles of hearing aids for individuals to use. But the biggest reminder for you guys is that hearing aids are not like glasses. You can put your glasses on and you can dial it in so then you are able to see crystal clear. And you don't know what you're missing until you put those glasses on. Hearing aids can fill in some of that information, but they do not restore normal hearing. They can make things louder. They can give the person more access to sound, but it can't fix the internal damage to their hearing system. So if the hair cells and the inner structures of the ear have damage or are destroyed or are gone, the hearing aids can't replace the clarity of what is spoken. So just remind yourself that if someone's wearing hearing aids, they may still need communication supports and other things to kind of fill in that missing information. They're just one tool in a person's ability to communicate. Next slide, Jody. We put in some pictures of cochlear implants. You may notice these on some of your clients or maybe when you're out and about in the grocery store. The first one on the left is an off-the-ear speech processor. So cochlear implant has an internal surgically implanted device, which is the speech processor that actually gets the inner ear and the nerve fired up, but they need to have this external part. So there are some that just attach to the head. It is a magnet that holds it in place. And you can see on the little boy, he has more of a traditional style. Looks kind of like a hearing aid over his ear, but then he also has that round magnet section that talks to the internal processor. Next slide. For both of these devices, they are tools. They can help an individual hear some things better. It is not a fix-all. It is not a decision to be fixed. It's a decision to have auditory access. So there's a very big difference between the medical perspective of fixing hearing loss or replacing hearing loss compared to a cultural perspective of I'm deaf, I don't have hearing, I didn't have hearing to lose, this is who I am. So please just make sure you're always aware of that. And then also for individuals with hearing loss, they can have listening fatigue if they need to listen to new information or a lecture. At a certain point, the whole auditory system is just tired and fatigued. So you can break up information into smaller chunks. And for people who had hearing, it can restore some of that, but really the goal is always communication. Next slide. We've already touched on a few of these. I think even with technology as a tool, individuals may still struggle to hear TV or hear their loved ones, but they still get cues from the tone of your voice, the inflection, the emotion, all of those kinds of things. Next slide. This is just a slide. So this is the program that I coordinate, the Behavioral Health Initiative. Jennifer already touched on our Wellness Day event. It is open to the community and professionals if you're looking to learn more information specific to individuals who are deaf and hard of hearing. We also have a series of videos on the website for professionals if you want to learn more about how to work with an interpreter, how to provide good access, those kinds of things. Next slide. We will share a couple resources with you. I know it's very hard to see in this picture, but this document was created during COVID, particularly with masks. Many in our community had a really hard time when they couldn't get any of those facial cues or none of the lip reading cues. But this is just good reminders about communication. It was created for medical professionals, but it works for anybody in a service provision kind of role. So we'll make sure that you have this. Next slide. I put this resource in every presentation that I do. So if the individual that you're working with is Medicaid eligible, you are able to use Medicaid codes to receive 50% reimbursement for those costs. Often, the biggest question when somebody says, I need an interpreter, is who pays? It's always about the cost. It's not about the communication and the access. And so we really want providers to know that you do have a way, and this is not sign language specific. The picture is sign language related, but this is for any language. And so on the DHS website, you can get this document, and I think it's 30 different languages. It's in Spanish, it's in Hmong, it's in Somali. So this is about anyone needing language services. Next slide. Okay, so now we can open it up for questions.
I am going to formally thank both of you and also Kim and Nicole. So Jennifer, Stacy, Kim, and Nicole for a phenomenal presentation. What I'd like to do is turn off the recording so we can go to an open format for Q&A. So with that, I'm going to put this up and then I'm going to stop the recording.